We are 30 days into this conflict with Iran, and according to the White House, we are right on schedule.
With respect to the timeline, again, the president, commander-in-chief, the Pentagon has always stated 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline for Operation Epic Fury. We're on day 30 today. So again, you do the math.
Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, doing the math, along with my co-host, Dagan McDowell, Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the hour, Zuma Global President Heather Zumaraga. Great to have you.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So the Wall Street Journal reporting that President Trump is signaling he may be willing to end the war, even if the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. The administration says Iran has been decimated, its naval power gutted, and missile programs crippled. So while stocks have been volatile, the argument is that regional security is much more valuable than short-term stock market gains. Listen to Jamie Dimon just this morning.
It's much more important that this be successfully completed than what the market does. These are bad people, and they needed to be stopped. And just who decide what? Now, I don't know what the military knows. I don't know what President Trump knows. I just think now we've got to finish this thing and finish it right.
Brian, so does this end with the Strait still closed or with the diplomatic resolution? Can't forget my question in there. Brian, I was so eager, though, to come to you on this because I think I want to start with the Strait of Hormuz. And I think my question is, because you've been Mr. Positive, and I love it, and I want to start there, but can you actually end the war but not open the Strait? And how do those two coexist in your mind, if at all?
Well, what did the president say? He said, look, when we end the fighting, the Strait's going to open. Just going to open. I don't know. Will
Magically?
it? Will it? Could it?
Well, he said he's going to take all the oil.
When we leave Iran, what does Iran do? When we're done bombing them, when we're done destroying their military and all their military assets, do they keep the Strait closed? Does that help them? Does that help their allies? I don't know if they keep it closed. But I actually think what the president's trying to do is he's trying to talk to our gutless European allies who depend on that Strait, and he's saying, get over here. We did the hard work. You need to. It's the same thing he did to them in his first administration. It's the same thing he's been doing to them in this administration. He is trying to save Europe by getting them to carry their own water militarily. It's why he gives them the 5% target. Pay something to help defend yourselves. This Strait you depend on. Get here and defend yourselves. So I think he's kind of fighting a two-front messaging battle right now. We're talking to Iran. He's trying to get that done, achieve our objectives, and he's talking to our allies and saying, you need to pick up the slack that's yours. Do it, because if you don't, it might not work out well for you.
Heather, how do you read that? And then we can talk about the market later. But just
reaction.
when you think about the Strait.
Yeah, I think, well, he is saying, Wall Street Journal is reporting that he may be saying that we'll put an end to the war without having control over the Strait. And to Brian's point, yeah, I think Iran's looking at two things. Number one, how do we survive? And number two, they still want control of the Strait and will do everything in their power to keep it because they want to inflict as much economic pain, not just on the U.S., but globally as they can. So as the price of oil over $100 a barrel right now heads towards $150 or even $200, if this further expands to other areas outside of the Strait in terms of supply disruption, then Iran still has the upper hand and the advantage in terms of negotiating a place at the table to come back and say, acknowledge that we own the Strait, because right now they hold ownership of the Strait. Give us some repairs and reparations for all the areas that you bombed and lift the sanctions that you've put on us. And that's what they want in exchange for, giving up their nuclear capabilities.
Dagan, curious how you see this, because I always thought until you actually open up that Strait, and I think maybe the long-term question is who owns it, you're not going to see crude come back down. You may not see a big rally in the equity markets. That sort of was like that final piece of the puzzle. And long-term, if it doesn't, if Iran is effectively controlling that long-term, can you declare victory?
I will put it in the words of retired General Frank McKenzie, the former CENTCOM commander. who was on television on CBS over the weekend. To him, success in this mission in Iran is, one, the Strait of Hormuz is open. You hit some deal on the ballistic missile program and also on the nuclear program. That's about as much as you could hope for. And he pointed out in a long conversation that there are one of two ways you can open the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian regime negotiates with us, or they don't, and you decide to fight. And the U.S. military has been working on how you reopen the Strait of Hormuz for years and years and years. That you go in, you seize islands. Well, one, you raid islands, and raiding means there's a planned withdrawal, and then you seize other islands and you hold them. One, particularly Car Island, which would be profoundly humiliating for Iran and would give us, the U.S., great weight in negotiations. Car Island, you seize it, you shut down Iran's oil economy, you don't destroy it, you retain it for future use by the global economy and possibly for the return to Iran under certain conditions. This is absolutely doable. The easy way, negotiations, or the hard way. The Wall Street Journal article, it very clearly was related to a discussion that the President of the United States is having with his aides of if we want to stick to this 4-week timeline, what happens? If you look at the markets, I don't think it's necessarily directly related to that Wall Street Journal article, regardless of what Stuart was saying, that it seems as if that it's because rates are coming down, that there's a contained, maybe there's a resolution afoot. This isn't going to be a $1 trillion war. But also, why is there not a diplomatic solution in all this? That we waive, what if President Trump just says to Iran, hey, we're going to waive all of the sanctions on oil sales, and Iran wants to just open the strait? Despite what the president's saying about our feckless allies or would-be allies in Europe, that revenue and money makes everyone happy, and so would the flow of oil and fertilizer and helium, which the U.S. does need. It just seems like, given the damage that has been done, there are only 3,000 targets left out of 13,000 have been hit, based on the president's, what he said to the FT.
Yep.
So maybe there is a resolution here, diplomatic rather than military.
Jackie, where are those Arab states? Where is NATO? Where is Europe? They've been, for the most part, silent and unhelpful.
The Arab states don't really have the firepower, but Europe certainly could get involved, and they're not. So we've talked about, President Trump has asked the question, when we need NATO, will they step up? Because we're the ones that contribute the most. And this is a perfect example that they're not stepping up to the plate. But luckily, the president doesn't necessarily need them to in order to achieve his objectives here. I have batted around the idea of a diplomatic solution for a while, because in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, I was sure there was a diplomatic solution. But Putin, even being who he is a far cry from the regime that you're dealing with here. And I wonder if there is a diplomatic solution, is it synonymous with actually finishing the job the way the president and the administration have spoken about? I'm also questioning this issue of the enriched uranium. Where is it? How do we get it? Is that part of finishing the job? That will make things very much more complicated before we even think about what happens to the Strait. I'm also looking at some of the characterizations of what's gone on here, as Caroline Levitt said, now in the first 30 days, that the country's been decimated, that the missile programs have been completely crippled. They've been saying things of that ilk, maybe not so superlative for the last few weeks, yet somehow this regime comes up with more ammunition. It's getting it from somewhere. Either they have more than was anticipated, or parties are giving them more to manage to continue dragging this out and moving it forward. The Post was reporting that the U.S. has struck more than 11,000 targets in 30 days. That is very significant, and I'm not diminishing any of that. Trump posted that picture of the fiery explosion on Target that was hit last night. But I'm just wondering, what he is thinking, despite what he says to the public, because we know sometimes how he postures in public is very different than what he's thinking or what they're talking about internally. If they want to finish this job, if that is true, then this is going to go on substantially longer.
Well, it's going to escalate. To you and Dagan's point about either seizing an island or seizing the plutonium, that means boots on the ground. So that's when you hear of military, U.S. military troops, 3,500, I think the number's over 3,000 that we're looking at. That involves boots on the ground. You can't do it from just the way we're doing it now, blowing stuff up, missile and drone warfare. So if there's more military action, then it's going to escalate. It has to, if that's part of the diplomatic resolution.
Can I ask you a question then? And finally, what this means for the markets. You're looking at a 1.5–2% rally on the NASDAQ today. Yields calmer and lower today. Is this excitement about words that we're hearing, or is some of this positioning? We talked about, I think yesterday I mentioned the fear greed index, extreme bearishness heading into this. Some of the ideas that this market is like desperate for a way to go higher. It just needed an excuse. How do you think about this?
That buy on the dip mentality, that has been something that's always worked, at least up until the war started, and you might get a little bit of that today. You mentioned the bearish sentiment, and that's short sellers. The VIX is extremely volatile right now, and so you have some short covering going into the weekend. It's actually quarter end, the last day of the first quarter. So it's a big day to watch and see what investors do, buying and selling of asset managers, and how they close this quarter out and position themselves for Q2 and the rest of the year. So it's a very important day.